Honest community, before we dive into this episode, we've got a quick free favour to ask. If you enjoy the Honest Property podcast, please hit like, follow and subscribe wherever you're listening from. It helps us grow, reach more people and bring on guests that you want to hear from. Thanks for being a part of this. We appreciate you more than you know.
And welcome to the Honest Property podcast with your hosts, Becky and Ruth. And we like to talk about all things entrepreneurship, property and investing and business. So today we have Anastasia, the lovely Anastasia, who is the Wildpreneur on Instagram. And she also has a law firm, not law firm. Yes, a law firm. Yeah, it is law firm. Isla.
Yeah.
Isla. Yeah, she's sort of, she stood out so much to us on Instagram because we're like, oh my gosh, she's like us, kind of a wild card.
Yeah.
One you don't expect in the industry, but is bossing it. Yeah. And there's so much, I think, on social media, especially in the entrepreneur space, a lot is like hustle. And Anastasia was a bit of a breath of fresh air because we have gone on a whole journey this year of simplifying and going, we don't want to be part of that. And Anastasia was the first person actually that we saw
To visibly break that mold.
Yeah, and just be like, I'm
refreshing.
going to swear, I don't give a shit about what people think of me. And actually that attracts the right people to you. So yeah, that was just so refreshing to be able to have someone else who we can actually relate with. Yeah. Why don't you start with your journey? Because I know you followed a traditional path, got your law degree. Do you want to fill in the blanks in that?
Fill in those blanks. Thank you, ladies. Thank you for the introduction and thank you for having me. As you said, it's amazing when I saw your guys' profile because I was like, there's people like me out there, which can sometimes feel that's not the case because of how the industry's very like glitz, glam, and also like idolizes hustle. Like if you're not working 24 hours a day, you're a failure. And that can be really like distracting and really noisy. So when you meet other people who are like, no, we're onto something, it's like really helps you to kind of reinforce that. When my journey started as a lawyer, I still am a lawyer and had gone through the really traditional method, getting a training contract, working in law firms. I just really didn't fit in. It wasn't like I say a conscious didn't fit in. I just, I used to wear suits, stiletto heels, really like the sound of your heels, courtroom floor. Like, I loved that. That was like a vibe for me at the time. But slowly, like my characteristic more than how I looked didn't fit in at the time. I think the kind of maybe looking a bit different has come later, but my characteristic didn't fit in. And, I really was always focused on like creative thinking, outside the box, what law firms aren't doing. And actually we were just briefly talking about it before the podcast started, really this retreat that I'd launched. I'd gone through like a spiritual journey. When I say spiritual, all of our existence is spiritual. So if anybody hears that word and is like, yuck, I'm not going to tell you about like it's not a big like I think we need to take that out of it because it's just we're all spiritual beings and we all are learning stuff about ourselves. That's what I really mean by that, as opposed to like this spiritual superiority, which isn't the case. So I'd started that journey of inward discovery because I was having panic attacks. And so I did a lot of like healing work to try and work out why that's happening, regulate my nervous system, launched a retreat for people like myself. And at the time I went to this partner who was my head of department. And I was like, hey, like I'm launching this retreat for like professional people. Like I think, do you mind if I do this alongside my work? And because you have to ask them for permission because you have restrictive covenants in your contract. So you can't do what you want. And he was like, Anastasia, like, we all know you're really good at business development. Like, it sounds like you want to do more of that. No, this isn't business development. This is people. This is life. But okay. And then he was like, Anastasia, you're just a bit of a square peg in a round hole. I was like, go home, you Google that. You're like, what the fuck does that mean? And it's like, I'm weird. Basically, I don't fit in. Okay. So I think the next day I noticed him and was like, this isn't for me. Probably the best thing he could have ever said to me. Left there. I became a consultant solicitor. Then off the back of that, started like running a networking event. I had a local networking event business. I had the Busy Buddha. I had a brokerage at the time. So again, I think entrepreneurship, when people see Isla, they might think that was my only thing. I'd done many things, many businesses, many events, many things that worked and I'd learned from. So that was that before Isla. And then we launched Isla in 2022, maybe? 2022, I think. by my memory.
Yeah.
And really, we just identified a gap in the market there, that people were having a right hard time finding independent legal advice. My strange little brain was like, this is a real problem. Why isn't anybody doing anything about this? This is really bizarre that no one just fixes this problem. And people were like, it's because you can't run a law firm that just does ILA. That's a really stupid idea. And I was like, okay, sure. And they were like, you can't do ILAs day in, day out. I heard that. I heard you're too young. I was only 28 maybe when I had the idea. But I'd run all those other businesses. I had many, it's not that either matters anyway. You learn on the job, as you go along. So, I heard everything that said it wouldn't work. And then we launched it and it became a huge success. And that was, I guess that's the snapshot of what led us to here and Isla, and maybe this little dropping of the seeds of like, you're different and you don't fit in, and that little bit of well-being kind of weaved into it of like, where did that come from and what was my passion behind that? I guess that's where those key cornerstones of my life started weaving in together.
Oh my gosh, I think that's such a good point, because actually I remember talking to my friend and she was having a difficult situation with the property, because your independent legal advice is mainly for property services, isn't it? Property and she had an issue and she just needed advice. And I was like, I feel like more people just need the advice than like the full scope of everything. So what you've done, it's just more, it's higher demand. So why wouldn't, it just is smart to offer what you're already doing. So why would, it's just crazy that other people are putting a damper on it when that is usually.
Yeah. So the independent legal advice part, I think the problem with the industry was that before we launched it, lawyers were like, it's too high risk and too little reward. So that's what they would call it, because you'd be charging, or could only reasonably charge a few £100s, but that's taking on quite a big risk on the liability of the loan, essentially. So if anyone who doesn't know what independent legal advice is, that's the aspect where, you give a personal guarantee in a property transaction, and the bank will say, I need you to go and get independent legal advice on that personal guarantee. So you go to a different solicitor, to your main solicitor, you get the ILA, you go back to your solicitor and carry on. And that was really hard to get because of these restrictions in the industry, that people didn't want to do it. But it was an advice that was critical to the whole transactions going through. So that was pretty crazy. But people also were like, you won't make any money from doing ILAs. And I was like, you will if you do it on a huge scale and you service the whole world, because you
it's volume.
Yeah. But to do it at volume, you need to have systems, operations, technology. And lawyers are like, what? So every day I have to open 50 files manually. I'd have to send out terms of business by pigeon courier. It's like, no, you don't have to do that, right? That's the thing. So all of our stuff is really tech integrated. So like we can onboard a client. I think when we first started, I did a video of that, and we can onboard a client within like 3 minutes because of the way we send everything out so fast.
So good. I was going to say, you go first. I was going to say that it's like you've turned an industry that probably is quite old school and traditional in the way that they run things. But because of your insight and you've modernized it. You've modernized it. Well, yeah, we're on the same wavelength. Is that like, that's, for instance, like an example is like a broker, and they're like, they want to do one, like it's just one-to-one, meet face-to-face. Like, I'll drive 2 hours to you. And yes, like it's such a tedious old school way of doing things, but the world's moved on and there's ways to do things way more efficiently. And if it means that you charge less, but you have to create the volume to be able to charge less, the systems that you've created, like that's a modern way of doing business. So kind of, I think maybe a lot more businesses can learn from that because there's only so much time that you have in the day to be able to hope that each person that you meet or you drive to turns into a lead.
Absolutely. And I think, so I also do mentoring.
What don't you do? That
it's spare time. So I do mentoring, and it doesn't matter that I don't have to mentor lawyers. So I mentor brokers. And because I don't need to know how a brokerage is set up necessarily, because the whole point of it is that I'm looking at it and going, when they're like, hey, you know what? I spend so much time replying to messages. I'm like, okay, right. And so I can't scale the business. I can't do social media. I can't do this because I'm actually online replying constantly to messages. I'm like, okay, well, let's automate that. Let's put a process in that. So that triggers an automation. And they're like, but I can't do that because of this. And I'm like, why? Like, that's like, can we think like this? And then all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, like, I can't believe we can do it that way. And I'm like, yes. And they're just little hacks. But I think it really comes back to you're a square peg in a round hole. So it doesn't matter what industry I'm looking at. I'm looking at things from like a different perspective to be like, why are you doing it that way? Like, that's just so slow and it's wasting all your time. So
you're
like,
open-minded. You're totally open-minded.
Like, you know, I don't work less, or my business doesn't work less, so to speak. We are still covering huge ground. I think that's a common misconception, that to have time freedom, you basically stop working less. So then people feel this negative feeling where they're like, oh no, I'm letting myself down. I'm letting my business down. No, I'm still a hustling machine, but I don't have to do it. If you have the right systems and technology and integrations, which is what I've been working on with my mentorees or myself or the whole business, it alleviates time where you didn't think you had it or you didn't think it was possible. Or like, often what I'll do is if I'm like, oh, there's nothing that exists for that. How do you know? Google it. Is there anything that exists? Like,
we've been piecing like this online world, this online part of our property business. We've only really started it since February, and it's a lot of piecing it together. And the whole way we've been like, there must be an easy way to do it. Google it. Someone's made a solution. Okay.
That's it. Or like, put in ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT if there's a solution. There will be a solution to it.
Like, I've only really recently, you're probably way ahead of me with this, but it's Zapier?
Yeah.
I don't know Zapier. Zapier. And I'm like, oh my God, it just automated everything. So good.
Yeah, that's it. And sometimes we can't see, particularly as entrepreneurs, we can't see the wood for the trees thing. That's the saying. And we can't, particularly if we're stuck in it, doing the messaging, doing the replying. And then I get into the next roadblock, particularly with brokers and entrepreneurs or, whatever industry it is, where it's like, okay, but I can automate that. But then if someone else picks that up, I'm worried about how that will affect my clients because I'm the source of the business. And it's like, okay. There's again, checks and balances that we can have in place to make sure your team are running it as you would run it. And you can still oversee things without you having to do it. So the kind of time freedom really comes from like, I think people think I can only be time free once I've made X amount and I'm a millionaire doing nothing. Well, sorry to break it to you, very few people are millionaires in this world. So you're going to be spending your whole life chasing that, and then you're going to die having never done it. So you do it now. Like,
I think also another thing to highlight as well, especially for people who are down the path of entrepreneurship, that they feel like they need to be. I think it's easy for people to say, "Oh, then how do I have like I am the personality in the business, like it's going to take away from my clients if I'm not going to be the person doing the day-to-day job." But there are other ways to be able to connect with your customers or your clients without having to be like the sole person. Like you said, with like having these systems, you can still find ways to still have that, what do you call it, that
it's that brand imagery or that involvement to make sure that your ethos is being carried through to your clients, or like expertise that you have or anything like that. Is that what you're trying to, I think that's maybe what you're...
Yeah, I think just having the relationship with your as well, but that you don't have to do it by, there are just more structured, better ways to do it without taking all your energy, especially if you wanted to grow.
Yeah, so that's again something I've been working on with one of the mentorees, is in like, that's exactly the point they raised, that actually, but the clients come to us for me.
Yeah.
So what we do is things like, it'll be passed to the team, but like, and the team can deal with it, but because and then you actually make your clients feel more special. So hi, Bob, it's Anastasia here. You're one of our best clients. I want to take the time to personally check in on you to make sure you're doing okay. Is there anything else I can help you with? All of a sudden, not only have they got people dedicated, people dealing with everything's just perception. So now all of a sudden, Bob feels more special than he's ever felt, because the CEO doesn't talk to anybody anymore, but they talk to Bob. Actually, check in with everybody, or, the broker checks in with everybody, but they're not the person having to talk day in, day out. And then like, the teams can learn phrases that you use, or like template emails that get sent.
Yeah, like your brand voice. Yeah.
Yeah, so they adopt your brand voice, but they're very much of like, because I'm out there essentially the face of Isla, there's so many inquiries come through to my email inbox or my LinkedIn. I just forward it over to the team, but obviously I can still check in to be like, hey Bob, like thanks for sending us those ILAs recently. Like, how are you doing? And then it's like, they actually feel quite special because of that. So you can still have that relationship. And actually, if anything, you'll give it.
It just takes less energy, but you are, like you said, you're just checking in and you're giving high value attention, more focused attention where it matters.
Exactly.
And then, totally makes sense.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think there's so many hacks, I guess, that can help with that, particularly when scaling a business. So like, I think that's something that people get stuck at, like the scaling part of it, because we get stuck in the, like, it has to be me. And you as the founder are critical to the business, of course, but it doesn't have to be you. Like, you know, even from our advertising, our brand imagery, our face, like what faces are going out there and who we're speaking to, a lot of it can be done through systems, processes, the right team, and removing yourself slowly from it. But I think a lot of people are put off by that.
Yeah, because it also takes time. I guess you could say there is like preparation time to set up all the systems, but the return on your time is almost infinite, isn't it? Until it changes again. Then you have to like adapt it, but then, it'll probably integrate in some way and then you just,
And it's things like, you know, it is, you learn from experience. So when we first like hired people, I mean, I'm quite a quick learner. So I've hired somebody, didn't work out, had to hire someone else. I was like, oh my God, I've got to do the whole thing again. Got to train them again. I was like, this is stupid. So I made a video of me doing everything that I know how to do.
Yes. Yeah.
I have videos of it all. So there's nothing that's not videoed. And we have it written in a guide and also videoed we use Loom as our software. Yeah. So now, then when someone hires, I'm not derailed for months. I just send out the video, the training video and the training book, and they can take it on that way. But they're all things we learn as we go along.
Yeah, like we from a property investing perspective with our tenants as well, and just in business, we've created video manuals that they can access, and that saves time from having to go out and do all of that yourself. So yeah, if there's a way to video everything because in business there's so many things that are repetitive tasks.
Absolutely.
And
property,
when they are
yeah, for sure. You know, the boiler doesn't do this. If you know that's a thing that regularly happens, make a video of you doing it. And just be like, hey, there's actually a button here that you've got to turn on, and like, it's so easy. Like, that's so easy to do.
Personally, I'm such a visual person, a video can explain so much more than just like a written manual as well. So I really advocate for doing little video tutorials on how to do everything.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we'll move with hiring staff as well for our business that we sold. If there was something that they couldn't do or they couldn't access somewhere, then we would just send them a video to say, well, this is how you do it. Then it reduces them constantly asking you questions on how to access a property or pick up keys. And if they can, it gives people who work for you as well more feel like you trust them to make decisions for themselves instead of having to constantly come to you to ask, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do?
Absolutely. Because I think that's a real barrier for scaling as well. People are like, they'll hire one or two people and they're like, this is a nightmare. I'm being asked 101 questions. I've been there. People are constantly at me. I can't get any work done. Whereas, like you said, if you have guides and videos of it, they can go to that and then they feel empowered because they're like, I figured it out myself. But they kind of didn't. It's still your input is in like, you make the employee feel great or the tenant or whoever be like, okay, I did it. And that empowers them to work things out themselves. But ultimately, for any business owner who's scared of kind of giving over that control, you still have the control because they still watched your video. Like, so they still
you doing the same thing that you would have said live.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many hacks.
Is this the reason why you created the Busy Buddha retreat? Because you saw a lot of business owners who were basically, they were burnt out, not streamlining their business.
So when I originally launched Busy Buddha, I was still a solicitor in a law firm. So I wasn't a business owner at that point. So my original launch of it was to help busy professionals, so hence the tongue in cheek, the busy Buddha. And it was to help people who were suffering from like panic attacks. That was obviously my specific thing that I was suffering with, burnout, unfulfillment. And I really wanted to bridge the gap between that world, so lawyers, business owners, accountants, people who would classically turn their nose up at like wellbeing retreats. And I mean like retreats like that are telling you to look inward and breathe and meditate, do some shadow work. They're like, oh, what's that? Like, that sounds weird. We're not doing that, yeah? So I wanted to bridge that gap and say, look, like, you can still be that business owner or that entrepreneur or that solicitor. No one says to you now you can't eat meat or can't drink alcohol anymore. Not that, you know, whatever your personal preference is, but I think there's this feeling that like, they're going to tell me I've got to change my life and I live a certain way, or that doesn't matter. None of that really matters. What matters is the kind of inward work and the connecting with yourself and, you know, bringing happiness into your life in a way that's through a regulated nervous system and all the science that comes with it. So I would want to bridge that gap by being like, let's get rid of the fluffy stuff around it and let's teach you the science behind what's going on and let's help you live a better life.
Yeah.
That's when I originally did it. And I ran 2 sellout retreats. It was amazing. Like a feeling like I'd never really felt before. Like these people were hugging me, like crying, like you've changed my life. And it was a feeling that like, I'll never forget. And then
it must have been so fulfilling.
Oh, amazing, amazing.
I think it's at the right time as well. I mean, especially for this year, I think with all the science that's come out and all this information of how beneficial, I've done somatic dancing and I found that I like just wept. But I think it's so important, especially whatever career, whether you're an entrepreneur or you work in a very stressful corporate environment. I think maybe like 5 years ago or 10 years ago, if you told someone, oh, you're going to do some somatic sort of dance or some somatic therapy, I think they'd probably think you were converting them to be a monk or a vegan. But like now, I think people with all the information out there are craving this information because our nervous system's all fucked.
It's shot to pieces. Yeah, absolutely. And I think for like the relaunch of it, so that was how I originally launched it. And then I'd stopped for 2 years whilst Isla was ongoing because I couldn't do it all. And to represent what the Busy Buddha stood for, I had to respect my boundaries and my time. So I'm now just relaunching it. Actually, I haven't kind of publicly announced it. So anybody listening to this is like a hot off the press kind of shit. The opportunity to then actually tell people about it. So it's being relaunched, but it's having a slight kind of glow up. And the glow up that it is for entrepreneurs, and we're really looking at combining actually like business mentoring. Obviously I told you I do mentoring with the somatics, with the breath work, with the nervous system work. So like what I hope to do then for entrepreneurs is there'll be like various different retreats that focus on various different things. So, you know, self-limiting beliefs could be one of them. Could be freedom of time. So like the one that I'm hoping to launch in, I think it's May. I think it's in my diary for May. I think I'm hoping to relaunch that. We'll start so like somatic practice, and that's like their shit is not mine. So as an entrepreneur, we carry so much shit that isn't ours to carry. Like your opinion of me, what I look like, what I'm doing, what you think's right, what you think success is. So, you know, you go on Instagram. And if I see one more picture of somebody like, okay, so everybody got each to their own, but if I see a picture of someone in a Rolls Royce that you don't own, a network that you're not paying for the champagne,
oh my God,
I don't know what to do anymore. Like, you know, people really want to own the Rolls Royce, and I really wish you well if you do, but that's not my idea of success. But
it just reeks of ego. It makes me feel.
But like you said, each to their own. If that's what, like,
I just feel like it's so dishonest, and that's what birthed those honest property systems. Because there's just so much dishonesty and ego. That's what we saw online,
and then we just went,
and we were like, no, that's it. It's enough's enough. We need more people like yourself and us, just being like, okay, no, what's the life you really want? Design it around that without. If you know, having materialistic things, that's totally fine if that's up to you. But there was just too many people being just not being genuine, and that it was just time to.
It was exhausting.
Yeah,
it was exhausting.
And also, just to touch upon what you're doing is so. Just to double down on what Ruth said, it's so necessary because I truly believe entrepreneurship. If you're going to be a business owner, that is a spiritual.
It is.
That is spiritual.
It takes so much effort for you to go, I'm going to start this.
I'm going to show up for myself. I'm going to turn up every single day
with people judging you, and you're going to still follow what it is that you wanted to do because it's your dream.
Having faith in your belief in yourself to be able to pull it off, and just so much, there's going to be so many more obstacles, so much more demand of your time just to start it. And there's just so much self-facing issue, like self-facing issue, things you're going to have to confront about yourself,
and build so much confidence up to just go, I don't care what anyone says, I'm still going to follow through. And then years, however,
spiritual
practice. Yeah. It's like the
biggest soul discovery thing ever, ever. And I think, the thing is everybody has a different key to success, or what they think success is. And like with the kind of Rolls Royce example, if that is genuinely what makes you happy, then that's fine. But I think that the issue that is happening to a lot of people is we're being told, because it's always that's success. Okay, so obviously I won't be for people who genuinely want to go do that, because they'll be at the networking events where we're doing fine.
We won't be. We're going to be in the woods singing to the.
But for us mere mortals, I hope I'm taking. For us people who don't want to do that,
just different priorities,
distracting. So what I wanted to achieve was that, so whatever it is to use, people who came on the Busy Buddha, that somatic practice to release shit that isn't mine to carry, or what is your impression upon me? So we're apparently born with blueprints, and then obviously we have a blueprint, and then we take on imprints. Now those imprints are aligned to us or not. And actually in those imprints of what success is, so I mean, as I said, I don't care what people want to do. So actually I jest, and that this sounds like I'm judging, but actually I jest. I don't care if that makes you happy. The vast majority of us, or many people I know, that actually fundamentally isn't their idea of happiness. And I challenge many people that maybe one day they spend their whole life thinking it is.
Yes.
Get to 50, 60, 70, buy that Rolls Royce, drive it for 10 minutes and be like, oh my God, it wasn't that. I'm still fucking miserable.
Yeah. Hey guys, if you're new to property investing, we know exactly how hard it is to figure out where to start. That's why we created the Beginner's Roadmap. It's your guide to mastering the fundamentals so that you can move forward with clarity and confidence. Plus, you'll gain access to our free community for ongoing support. Just hit the link in the show notes. Now, let's jump back into this episode.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And I think you hear stories of people like celebrities, for example, who reach that point of success only to come back, just reground themselves, essentially. I think Jim Carrey was a really good example.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, I just wanted to paint. That makes me happy. And it's really reevaluate what's actually what makes you happy, and not just because someone else told you.
Exactly. And that's kind of what, as I said, the people coming there aren't people who I want people no, I know that doesn't make me happy. You might not know. And that's what that kind of somatic thing is, to strip you back down to yourself. So we kind of start with that, say, typical workshop that I want to launch. Is doing that, and then we do a little bit of actually, okay, well, what's my financial goal, what's my business goal, what's my life goal? Because when you start writing them all down, if life goal is to, say again, some of the people I mentor, life goal is to spend more time with girlfriend or boyfriend. Business goal is but I want to continue being a solopreneur because I don't want to hire staff, because staff are hard work, but I don't want to be a sole advisor, I don't want to do all the advice, I want to be free. They're not aligned. That's just not going to work. Okay, so
Where's your time?
So, and then we need, and then the financial goal is I want to have X amount, but I want to live here or whatever. So we're going to do kind of alignments to make sure that's aligned. But before we can start talking about financial, business or life alignment, we need to do a little bit of work to make sure you know that in yourself. Because if you're just imprinted with society tells me that, something will be out of sync. So society tells me my financial goal is to earn this amount and drive this car, but my actual life goal is to be at peace in the countryside doing this. There can be things that will work, but there can be things that maybe aren't aligned. So we need to start seeing what that person really wants. So part of the workshops will be to do that, and then we'll do hot seats with me where I will tell you things that I've done or created to make things easier. Further somatic practices where it's stepping into your highest self. So we'll kind of conclude the day with I'm fucking here and I'm owning that. And so we've started the day with shedding what's not ours, and we end it with this is me and I'm owning everything I've just created today. Because like you said, the spiritual journey about being an entrepreneur is turning up for yourself and believing in yourself when everybody else is laughing at you. People were laughing at me when we launched Styler. They were like, it's a stupid idea. And I think that's something that's really, really important as a practice for entrepreneurs, is knowing themselves, knowing what they want, knowing what fulfilled and meaningful life means to them. Will all that money make them happy? Because again, you see so many people, I've been there. You get all that money and you're like, oh shit, I'm still miserable.
Yeah.
Place to be in.
I love that your approach is just like, life is holistic. Like, everything ties together your lifestyle that you want to have, your romantic life. Like, we all know this, your career, but it's still, in this day and age, people just separate them so much. And it's like, no, this is an ecosystem of your life that you need to make flow really well between each other. And you have designed it. You've designed your life so that your career, like, everything is just aligning for you. And it's really clear because you're in the countryside now and you've made it, like, technology has allowed you to be in nature. Like, I'm really happy that I've also recently moved to nature, like, instantly, like, relief, because I think people feel like you have to be in the city, you have to be in London, or you have to be in a big busy place. But that might, depending on your character and your personality, that might really significantly impact you potentially. I realized, like, without really realizing how much that made me less happy by being in certain environments. But you can adapt. Just because society says you have to be in certain places or be a certain way, you don't have to do that.
Well, I was going to say also this analogy as well, we were talking about it earlier today, was as well within the property investing community, it can be so easy to look on social media and see someone's like scaling like 10 properties a year, and but like that might be what they want to do, but that might not be what you want for your life. And actually you might enjoy other things. I think sometimes there is in the property investing space is like that everyone should strive for that. And actually it doesn't, if the lifestyle that they're living is not what you want to live, then do you need to be doing exactly the same? Maybe you're actually quite happy having some comfortable, easier,
a big house.
Yeah.
I have to clean it or pay for a cleaner.
Yeah.
Maybe
or
you just want like a little place. Yeah, it's little, and I'm really happy with it.
Yeah. Do you know what? You're so right. And I think there's also this attachment to, I mean, I felt this way, right? So I might be right that other people might feel this way, but I think there's an attachment to, well, hold on. If I'm saying, no, I don't want that big mansion, I don't want to drive a Ferrari or whatever car it is that I'm coming up with at this stage, am I then settling and residing to the fact that I'm not capable? That's not the case.
The same thing.
It's not the case. I am so much happier here. My house costs a fraction of the price than a 2-bed flat costs in the town. Like, I say that often because I think people think, oh, it's easy for you to say here, you live in a mansion in the countryside. No, it costs hardly anything.
Yeah.
But it's just a different way of thinking. And then, like, I used to have a BMW M4, had a brand new Audi Q5, like, as in I went into showroom, it was on the court and I drove it off, brand new, 0 miles. I got rid of both of them because for me, it didn't mean I was failing. It meant that actually I really, really value time, space, freedom. I didn't want to have to make £40,000 take home income. Then after tax, you're looking at like 20, whatever, to live. I don't want to do this. I don't want to make that sort of money every month. Like, it was just a humongous pressure that I didn't want to be living under. And actually, I think I might have said this online somewhere, but I could get a job in a bakery down the road, a job in Tesco. And that's no disrespect to any of those jobs. I mean it by comparison of like, I don't need loads of money to sustain this life. And and this is a life that makes me so happy.
Yeah, same.
That's the important thing. And I think that so often people are like, what? So you stopped striving for a Lamborghini, so you've given up. I don't want a Lamborghini, but if you do, that's fine. But really,
I can't go that fast. Why do I need a Lamborghini?
I don't fast cars, but I just also think like, and it's not a discourteous then to people who've got those things. It really isn't. Like, I don't think money is a source of all evil. I think money's fantastic. I think
it gives options.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant, and I still have money, so it's not the issue. The issue for me is that we think that we can't be happy until we have those things. And I think
it's tied to money. It's when your mindset is that your worth is tied to the money or to the material. That's the issue.
Yeah. So I won't be until I have that car. I won't be happy until I buy that mansion. That's the problem, really.
When you bought your cars, what was your thought process when you bought those cars? Was it like, I've made it, or will this prove myself to other people from like from the ego, talking from the ego? Was that like, what was your thought process when you bought certain things like the cars?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I think I thought at the time that when I bought those things, I think I felt like it meant that I was entitled to have those things, so to speak, that it was always a natural course of events that like, get money, buy flash car. Like, I didn't think twice about it. I think that's the problem, so to speak. So I think it was like it
wasn't your blueprint that you wanted.
Yeah, but I don't think I even thought about it. I think I just got loads of money, buy flash car, live in flash house. And then I was like, why are we doing this? I don't know. I think it was just, like I said, that's what I'm saying. Heed caution to what you see online. I wasn't even
like a lifestyle creep. Like you feel, I know what you mean. It's like you're entitled to it because you have the money, so you kind of have to spend it.
That's what you do, right? And I think that was what was so confusing about it, that I was like, I'm not even that kind of person, but I just did it because what everybody does. I didn't think, and I'm somebody who really goes against the grain in terms of I think differently. Even I was caught out by it, that I was like, well, it's just what you do.
I think it's a double-edged sword as well. If you're an entrepreneur, you're like, I have to prove to everybody that doubted me that I did well.
That I succeeded.
The obvious way to prove that is to buy
material stuff to show there's proof of it, which, I mean, it makes sense.
But and also, I think it's sometimes not even a conscious thought. I don't think I was like, haha, look at all these, like, I'm going to put the roof down on my M4 and everyone's going to think I'm a right babe. I don't think I necessarily even had that conscious thought, but I think it's a subconscious thought that you're like, you know, I'm entering the rooms with these people. I need to keep, you always hear keeping up with the Joneses. I often don't think it's even a conscious thought. I think it's this unconscious thought that we just do.
I think also, I know I said double-edged sword. Is there another edge to the sword? I just want to say,
yes.
I also just want to put out there that when you appear or present yourself a certain way, there's also the aspect of considering whether it's consciously or not unconsciously, the rooms you can walk into, the opportunities that and connections you can be in contact with, because there is that element also plays into it.
There's truth.
There is a bit of truth behind it.
Maybe it's so instilled into society for survival. Like it's a whole mind survival thing of, if you can show that a good first impression with how you dress and what you have, then you're to other people, then you're showing
logically already telling somebody I can do things.
Yeah.
I have done things.
That you said like a historic ingrained thing. Because I think it actually is. So essentially what it comes from is that when we were living in tribes, so if you were of no value, of no use to me, you were the last person to get food, you were the last person to get medical care, and or you could be banished because you're no use to the tribe. So actually we needed to be valuable or perceived as valuable in order to survive. Obviously we don't need to do that anymore because many people who aren't valuable who are still alive. And actually that's, I think, is, so I love that you said about it being like, is it something that's ingrained? It is ingrained within us to have perceived value. And I know that when I was entering rooms with certain networks, I felt, because I didn't dress like, I've never liked designer clothes. That hasn't been one of my things ever. I didn't, and I'm not like, no longer do I really love wearing like a glitzy dress and heels. So I remember walking into some of these rooms, but whilst earning a lot of money, this is when Isla was, its peak. We've had some recent kind of setbacks recently. So this is when it was at its heaviest, like we were doing like millions, and I was taking a lot, our profit margins were like 60%. So we were taking, as in like what we could, our overheads were about 500,000 and we were turning over 1.26 million. So you can do the math. I'm very open about it. So I was earning a lot of money and I walked into networking rooms and I remember people wouldn't really acknowledge me. And I could see these other influencers who, by the way, if you look on their followers who say they have 100,000 followers, please go on life hack, please go on the reels. Click on the reels. When they've only got 900 views or 1,000 views, it's because they're bought followers. But let's all pretend.
Oh my god, I've been sharing about it, and I was like, oh my god, this is so annoying.
Got like 1,000 followers, but then I get 2,000, 3,000 views on my story, on my reels, and then you have someone who's got 100,000 followers, 50,000 followers. They can sit at tables that I don't sit at because they're an influencer. Look on their reel, and I promise you it will say they've got like 2,000 views. But
I've got to say as well that I'm really glad, but it appears that at least in late 2024, now 2025, other companies and brands are starting to recognize it's actually the engagement rate that matters. Because like you said, you could have so many followers
but they're
and a
bought
big
followers.
audience, but like one person's actually interacting with you.
Yeah.
And the thing is so I'd walk into those rooms. These people, because they're social media famous or because they're posting really out, I do post, year 2, I did 1.26 mil. I post about its success, but I try not to go over the top with it. Not for any reason of trying to make myself smaller to make other people comfortable. I just also don't want you to only talk to me because of that.
Yeah.
A lot of these people in these rooms who are really out there in terms of like, you think they're maybe doing better than they are, and the social media things. And I would walk into these rooms, and I shit you not, people wouldn't give me the time of day. Like, I wouldn't get spoken to. Everyone wanted to be their friend, get photos with them. And there were times, like, to be entirely honest, given the title of the podcast, part of me wanted to be like, do you know how much money I took home this month? Like, my ego's going, listen to me. But I didn't do it because that's not me, by the way. I wouldn't do that. But that was what was happening. When I was in those rooms, it had this like stench of like, in order to be there, I need you to all know and see how successful I am. And that's what I'm saying about like, actually, do we do it so that people, and if you know how successful you are, maybe you'll like me. And then I was like, oh, I'm out. Like, if I kick where I feel like I need to tell you how much money I took home this month for you to talk to me, no, I'm in the wrong room. Like,
you do want to work with those people anyway. And what's happening now, like with more people like yourself and ourselves online, we're just creating we're attracting our own community of people who have a better set of values.
Yeah, we've been there before where we sold our other business and we made ourselves small, and the way that we dress, and people would just be like, oh, you're just too young, girl. Like you can, I don't care. You can judge me.
Yeah.
Like, judge me. I don't give a shit. I'm not going to work with you then.
It's made it more important to us about having relationships with people, regardless of how much they earn, regardless, like if our values are the same, that's at the forefront
if
of doing.
If their values are right, they're going to be successful. So I'd rather be there from the beginning.
Yeah.
And support them when they made it.
Success, right? What is success? Is success being loved and having a partner who you can share your family or a morning coffee in the morning? So that's, again, what is that success? Because you're telling me that person's really successful because they drive a Rolls Royce.
But they're in a loveless place. Like, I don't want that.
Exactly. And I'd be at these events and like the men were just shits to their wives, and like, that they're not happy at home. And I'm like, do you know what? You're all like, this is madness to me. But the fact that I kind of for a second felt this need to justify my existence, I was like, I'm not doing that. Like, I've done that in times in my life in like, personal relationships, that we justify our worth to somebody by, if I do more, will you love me more? Like, what the hell? I'm not doing that when I walk into a networking event now. And so you're so right. We're around people who actually just want to be around us, whether you earn £1,000 or £100,000 that month. Who cares? That shouldn't be a value for measuring success, because success is how you feel inside, who you're surrounded by, what impact you make in the world.
Yeah.
How does it feel? Like, I use a saying, like, I want my life to feel as good as it looks, because if it feels good driving the Rolls Royce, inside I feel like ratchet hell, what's the point?
Yeah. I just like the way you said ratchet.
I think that's a really good lesson. That's such a important lesson for anyone listening to this, because I think sometimes you can get carried away, especially if you're at the start of your career and you're just wanting to only mingle with people who are like industry famous, that actually, are they also living their life? Or are they kind of relationships you want to build with that kind of person? Are they actually being authentic? Or are you just trying to jump on the bandwagon to be friends with them?
Like how you were at high school, just trying to get the popular kids to like you.
Yeah, because then you're kind of like social climbing instead of making true relationships.
Absolutely, absolutely. And say when that person, because we all have it as a business owner, you have good seasons and bad seasons. Like I touched on that we'd had a slight downturn recently, the season is coming back. It ebbs and flows. Like you honestly can't get your worth attached to it. Now, I, as a networker or as owning a network community, either one of them or just the person interacting with other people, if they are only hanging out with me or want to know me because of the flash car I drive or because I've made out like I own a mansion or millions of pounds, then when I have my harder days, they're going to leave because they're only with you or surrounding themselves with you, your wealth. And that's
surface level relationship.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I was observing, because I'm quite an observant person. So I was looking at these rooms and I thought, if they fell from grace, because it happens in entrepreneurship, you have your seasons, would you still be interested in taking a photo next to them? Or they're no longer of value to you? And that, again, made me feel really lonely and really just like, I just didn't want to be in those rooms. So again, that's such an important reason for being in those rooms, for how you address what rooms you're going to be in.
Yeah.
And I think like, as an entrepreneur, your relationship with yourself, obviously we've touched on it quite a lot, is so important. And if you can't trust yourself, there will come a dark day when you need to make a decision where you are the only person you have to rely upon. And if you've made some shitty choices and acted with some shitty integrity and not done things in a proper way aligned to yourself, you won't be able to rely on yourself because you can't trust your own judgment. So that's where the importance of like acting in alignment with yourself isn't just, again, this spiritual practice. It's actually so important for your entire existence and preservation, because one day when I've only got myself to answer a question, I know I can count on me. Like how many of you know that, you know?
And that's so hard. Like, I think that's also a really hard, you have to do a lot of work to really trust yourself, because I think there must be a lot of people who find it so hard to just, they don't know how to trust themselves. I mean, admittedly, I'd say in my 20s, I didn't trust myself. It took a lot of work to get to a point in my 30s where I'm like, I know exactly what I want, and same for you.
Yeah, and it's not that much. And actually, this whole move made me like reflect on my finances and realize I'm actually really cheap of a human being. Like, it doesn't take me very much
to enjoy life.
And I think as well, from the perspective of a property investor or business owner, everything's about reinvesting and growing wealth as opposed to just like more deliberate spending of my money that is going to achieve, maybe it's just my investing brain where I'm like, I just want high ROI on everything, whether it's monetarily or like energy or just return on happiness. I'm so much more conscious in my 30s now that is the only way that I want my energy, whether it's money, to flow, that is going to give me back a lot in return.
Yeah, and like you said, it's working out what that return is for you as well. I think it changes as we get older. So now, and it's a conscious, like you said, it takes a lot of work. So for me, I would love going on like big holidays, doing and it had to get bigger and bigger and bigger to hit the same, and spending money on things. I used to just let's do this, let's do that, spending money. And then I was like, okay, right, let's try and find if I wasn't doing that, can I find happiness, like the magic in the mundane? I like that saying, there's magic in the mundane. And I was like, no, I can't. I was like, this is boring. I'd sit here and be like, bored, so bored. And it's like, okay, if I can get no return on investment in just being and life, don't see it as but you've just settled sitting on your sofa. I think I sit on my sofa, I paint, I listen to podcasts, I walk, I feel the wind on my face. And if you can get 100% return on investment for that, which costs me zero, imagine how amazing that is. Imagine how beautiful and amazing life gets to be every day, irrespective of what you earn. If I blew up tomorrow, this would be my life. What I hated before was that all my happiness, or what I thought was happiness, if I blew up the next day, I was fucked. I had to get rid of my car, I had to get rid of my house. It would all just go. It was gone. Whereas now, I was like, nothing can take this away from me.
100%. I think living in nature as well means I get to, the mundane is the things you do every single day. And if you're enjoying it, like walking in the woods, seeing the trees, hearing the birds. This morning, it was so icy outside. We went for a walk and we were just crunching the ice. And I was like, the ASMR is so satisfying.
I went for a run and saw a tiny mushroom and I was so happy. I was like,
Shrimping
That's cute. Yeah, but it's like the small little pockets of joy. And this is what I strive for now. It's just small pockets of joy in the mundane actually makes everything else a bonus.
Yeah.
You know, instead of like,
I still love the nice things,
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, we like going on holiday, but you know,
It's not going to make me unhappy if I don't do that.
yeah,
Be fine.
That's the key, right? And that's what I think. I know you guys would get. It's like I'm not saying money is evil or the Rolls Royce is bad or the holiday you can't have it. But I tested it on myself and I tried, and this has taken a lot of practice. I was like, take those things away, make me kind of sit and do nothing. Are you happy? And I wasn't. I was climbing the walls. I was like, what can I buy? What can I do? And slowly, I've learned like
They call it cheap dopamine now, don't they? It's like not real, like finding natural dopamine hits and just the mundane.
Yeah, I love that. I knew you guys would get it. I knew we.
Oh gosh, I knew. Actually, we've had a chat before, and I was already like, we need to be recording this. Yes, we're already falling in love with each other.
Do you have any tips for our listeners of like your top 3 tips on how to just
for like if they were to go on a busy but a retreat, what would be the top 3 like takeaways you'd want them to get?
The power is in you, not outward, inside. Intuition and trusting yourself. So number 1, inward work. Number 2, define your success. Number 3, then because I like to add in the real business stuff and not just focus only on the things that are kind of energetic, it's systems and operations all day long. Process and system operations all day long.
I love that. That's so true. 100%. Yes. Me and Ruth are just like little seals clapping and bobbing our heads.
I think we've gone through a whole process of learning hard lessons so like we can really resonate with everything that you're saying. It took a lot of self-discovery on what we wanted in our business and personal life, that what we wanted that to look like for the next decade, instead of staying stuck in a previous decade that no longer has do not have the same energy. And that took a lot of deep work to go, my God, we have to shed this old self of ours to accept and acknowledge and be happy in our new version of us. And that is so hard if you have been running things the same way for such a long time, to learn new systems, new ways of doing work.
Relinquish control. Really.
Yeah, relinquishing control as a business owner is the hardest work you'll ever do. So something like somatic training is so valuable and so needed, especially as modern entrepreneurs where you're constantly the next thing, growth. But if you're not checking in on yourself, or I think like these kind of retreats are just, especially 2025, are just going to boom. And I'm so glad that you're providing something for this genre of people. Yeah, because the future is, I do really believe the future is going to be more of a boom of entrepreneurs, but how can we look after them? And you're providing something that is really, I think, is going to be the top priority in making sure that entrepreneurs actually survive.
Yeah, and it's bridging those gaps between those two worlds. I think people think they're so mutually exclusive, that either you're like a hustler, entrepreneur, realist, or you're someone who takes care of themselves and has a spiritual element or an inner intuitive behavior, all that. They're not two, they're together. And I think it's really having people stepping forward like ourselves to bridge that gap and say you can do both. You can live both lives simultaneously. In fact, they live really beautifully together.
Yeah, and just honor yourself as like a human being that has all these needs. So I'm excited for the Busy Buddha retreat. Where can people find more about it when you're ready to share more about it?
Well, nowhere at the moment. No, I used to where I used to have the retreat, there is a Instagram page at the.busybuddha. Actually, in my bio at the Wildpreneur, it's on there. It's like founder at the Busy Buddha, because you can see the previous retreats I used to hold. When it relaunches, I will be posting it on my Wildpreneur page as well as on the Busy Buddha. So anybody following me on Instagram can see it. And I'll bring the web page back to life. We used to have that, everything, but currently it'll be on Instagram. And so keep an eye out for that when it comes out. I think I'm Gonna do it. Now I've said it. I bought it. I might do it today. Got it.
3 weeks until this is out. So 2 to 3 weeks at the time. Just
Today.
put myself. Thank you so much, Anastasia. You've been such a light, honestly.
Yeah, we could carry on talking to you for ages because I feel like we are very same but different at the same time. And I think it's very, if you find people who are similar to you and have different qualities, but kind of same, different, then keep them close because it is very hard being a business owner. So you need that support.
No, amazing. And thank you so much for having me. You've been great hosts and I've loved everything we've touched on today. Everybody who's part of your communities and platforms is on something really magical with you ladies. So thank you for having me.
Combined effort between us all. So thank you for everything you've been.
Anastasia.
Bye.